Hello students and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about mood disorders. The mood spectrum. According to the National Institute of Mental Health, major depressive disorder afflicts approximately 14.8 million American adults, or 6.7% in a given year. Dysthymia annually affects approximately 3.3 million American adults, or 1.5% of the US population. I'm going to take you to a website right now just to give you a little more information about the mood spectrum. Criteria of major depressive disorder. There's something known as the 5-9 rule, which is one or both of the first two symptoms in blue, plus at least four more of the other symptoms. Diagnosing major depressive disorder, as with making other diagnoses, requires seeing the whole pattern rather than just one or two symptoms. Depression crosses the line into a disorder when it impairs daily functioning and/or causes significant distress. With the list, the pattern is one or both of the first two symptoms and three or four of the rest of the symptoms lasting more than 2 weeks. Major depressive disorder, prevalence and onset. So it's the most commonly diagnosed disorder in the world, unlike in the United States, where actually the most commonly diagnosed disorder is anxiety. Per year, depressive episodes happen to about 6% of men and about 9% of women, and the onset tends to be in the mid-20s. Over the course of a lifetime, 12% of Canadians and 17% of Americans experience depression. We're going to watch a short video about depression now. Seasonal affective disorder is more than simply disliking the winter. It involves a recurring seasonal pattern of depression, usually during winter's short, dark, cold days. So the survey results here are, have you cried today? The result was more people answer yes in the winter. They think that seasonal affective disorder has to do with sunlight and the vitamin D that we get from sunlight. One way to treat seasonal affective disorder is with light therapy. It's a special kind of lamp that actually mimics sun rays, and you go about your day under the lamp, and it actually improves symptoms. Criteria for bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder tends to have longer episodes, usually weeks of depression, and shorter episodes, usually days of mania. So mania is a period of hyper-elevated mood that is euphoric, easily irritated, hyperactive, impulsive, overly optimistic, and even grandiose. When we talk about depressed mood, we're talking about a stuck feeling. So exaggerated pessimism, social withdrawal, lack of feeling pleasure, inactivity, difficulty focusing, fatigue, increased desire to sleep. The mania, or the euphoric things, are exaggerated optimism, hypersociality and sexuality, delight in everything, impulsivity and overactivity, racing thoughts, and little desire to sleep. We're going to watch a video about bipolar disorder now. The prevalence and onset of bipolar disorder. Approximately 4% of the population are diagnosed with bipolar disorder. The onset tends to be in the early 20s. In teens, the diagnosis is disruptive mood dysregulation disorder and not bipolar disorder, because they want to make sure that it's not just the effect of hormones and growing on the individual. Understanding mood disorders. Why are mood disorders so pervasive and more common among the young, especially among women? Why does depression have so many symptoms? So there are a lot of symptoms. There's emotional symptoms like feeling sadness or hopelessness or helplessness, feeling emotionally disconnected, turning away from other people. Cognitive symptoms such as difficulty thinking and focusing, overall negativity, suicidal thoughts, preoccupation with death. There's behavioral issues, lack of facial expressions, less eye contact, slowed movements and speech, tearfulness, episodes of crying, loss of interest or pleasure in things, withdrawal from social activities, and physical symptoms as well, like changes in appetite resulting in weight gain or weight loss, insomnia, oversleeping, chronic aches and pains, diminished sexual interest, loss of physical and mental activity, global feelings of anxiety or restlessness. Now, it's important to note that when we talk about all of these symptoms of depression, we're not saying that a person has all of these. These are just some of the many different ways that depression can manifest in the individual. Can we explain why does depression often go away on its own? Can we explain the course of reactive depression? Often time heals a mood disorder, especially when the mood issue is in reaction to a stressful event. However, a significant proportion of people with major depressive disorder do not automatically or easily get better with time. Understanding mood disorders. So there has to be some evolutionary reason why mood disorders were passed on genetically. The why, however, is not something that the field of psychology really knows. There is a genetic link. Twin studies suggest that the heritability of major depressive disorder is at about 40%, nearly 90% for bipolar disorder. There are brain effects as well, self-esteem issues, learned helplessness, and an explanatory style. An evolutionary perspective on the biology of depression. Depression in its milder, non-disordered form may have had survival value. Under stress, depression is social emotional hibernation. It allows humans to conserve energy, to avoid conflicts and other risks, to let go of unattainable goals, to take time to contemplate. You also might consider from the evolutionary perspective that it seems just as likely as that depression serves no survival purpose, as evidenced by suicide, and is in the process of being eliminated by natural selection. So perhaps sometime in the near future, depression won't even be something that is prevalent or present in individuals. The biology of depression, genetics. Evidence of genetic influence on depression. DNA linkage analysis shows that the regions of chromosomes are similar across generations of people in depressed families. Another genetic factor to mention here is that people with depression had a variation of a serotonin-controlling gene, although the text notes that this result may not be reliable. Regarding the chart, can you recall the definition of heritability from the chapter on intelligence? It's important to remember that 80% heritability does not mean that genes are 80% of the cause of schizophrenia. It means that 80% of the variation among people is caused by genes. The biology of depression, the brain. So brain activity is diminished in depression and increased in mania. Brain structure. The frontal lobes are smaller in depression, and there are fewer axons in bipolar disorder. Brain cell communication. So more norepinephrine, which is an arousing thing, can cause the mania, but you have less norepinephrine with depression. There's reduced serotonin in depression. So we're looking at fMRIs of different brains here. So we have a depressed state on May 17th, a manic state on May 18th, and a depressed state again on May 27th. What do you notice about the differences in these fMRI images? Preventing or reducing depression, using knowledge of the biology of depression. Some medications, such as Wellbutrin, reduce depression by increasing norepinephrine. Other medications, such as Prozac, Zoloft, and Celexa, increase the availability of serotonin. You can also increase serotonin levels with exercise, so there are benefits to being a little more active, even if you don't want to. You can reduce brain inflammation with a healthy diet, especially olive and fish oils. This is known as the Mediterranean diet. Some people try to get the benefits of this diet by taking omega-3 supplements. You should also try to prevent excessive alcohol use, and I would also go so far as to say using other substances as a way to manage your depression. Alcohol abuse is related not only to biological changes, but it also leads to problems in behavior and coping skills. Understanding mood disorders, the social cognitive perspective. Depression is associated with low self-esteem. So we discount the positive and assume the worst about ourselves, the situation, and the future. Learned helplessness. So learned helplessness leads to self-defeating beliefs, such as assuming that one is unable to cope, improve, achieve, or be happy. Rumination. So we get stuck focusing on what's bad. Rumination actually is an old word that was used to describe how cows would chew their food constantly. So when you're ruminating, you're mentally sort of chewing on a thought over and over and over again forever. Depressive explanatory style we're going to look at on the next slide. So depressive explanatory style, how we analyze bad news predicts our mood. You can have different assumptions about the problem. So the problem is, if it's stable, you believe you'll never get over this. However, if you believe that it's a temporary thing, it's not going to last forever. The next problem, if you have a global depressive explanatory style, you believe that without your partner, you can't ever seem to do anything right. But if it's specific, you can think, I miss my partner, but I have friends and people that I can rely on. Another problem is the internal versus external. So internal, this breakup was all my fault, versus it takes two and it couldn't possibly all be me because there are two people in any relationship. So the result here is that the things from the first column lead to depression, and in the second column lead to successful coping. So this chart implies that the negative explanatory style leads to depression. However, as the chart will show, depression makes it more likely to make cognitive problems such as this negative attributional style. So depression can be caused by pre-existing pessimism encountering failure. Suicide and self-injury. So this can happen when people feel frustrated, trapped, isolated, ineffective, and see no end to these feelings. So beyond the 1 million who succeed, many more attempt suicide or make suicidal gestures, acts that look like suicide attempts without clear or intent to succeed. The numbers get much larger if we consider those who have had thoughts about suicide or wanting to be dead. Women are 2 times as likely to attempt, but men are 3 to 4 times as likely to commit. Why do you think that is? LGBTQ are 3 times higher than the national average to make attempts, and veterans are 2 times higher to make attempts rather than non-veterans. Non-suicidal self-injury, aka self-harm. Some people believe that this happens because it's a form of distraction from emotional pain. It's a form of self-punishment, which gives the individual an excuse to cry when emotional pain doesn't feel justified, or to get the endorphin response, which can come especially with repeated self-cutting, meaning you can become kind of addicted to the pain and endorphin response. This is a topic very near and dear to my heart. So if you are having these kinds of feelings, if you're having these kinds of thoughts, please know that you're not alone. I am someone who has struggled with depression and suicidal ideation for most of my life. I've been there. I get it. So if you ever need to talk, please don't hesitate to reach out. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all I have for you today. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, have a fantastic day.